What's up, y'all? Coach Cam back again, bringing you another episode of my ACC football preview. Hopefully we get through this one quicker than the last one. I had to do like kind of a snappy intro and get y'all prepped and ready for what we were going to be talking about. I shouldn't have the same issue this time, so for the most part, we should just be able to get into business and be pretty efficient with it. Three teams I'm talking about today. We're going to talk about Duke, Florida State, and Georgia Tech. I debated doing a fourth, which would have been Louisville, but I'm going to do it next week instead. That way I make sure I have at least one good team that I talk about in the following one. We'll see. One of these I'm going to have to do four. It may be that one, or it could be the one after that, but figure that out as I go. Same deal as last time. We're going to go each each position group, quarterback, every skill group on the offense, the lines, defensive line, the linebacker core, the secondary. So we'll talk about everything kind of in detail as it pertains to what they have, what they lost, and kind of the expectations. And then we'll go into their schedule for the upcoming year and whether it is conducive to success or if I think they've got a tough road ahead. So we'll start with Duke. I'll share the screen so you guys know where I'm at in the presentation. I just got to find Duke's picture. That one is not it. That one is it. All right. Talking about Duke. All right, so there they are. So I'll start with QB. Actually, the way I'm going to start this was one of the teams last year that I was completely wrong about from the jump, and I think a lot of analysts were kind of in that same boat. Count me amongst them. They had a new coach, Manny Diaz, who I am a big fan of. I think he's a great defensive mind, but you normally don't see that big of a jump from the first year where a guy's in the program. And his defense was, for the first half of the year, one of the best in the nation. And so I didn't really see that coming, and it happened. So that being said, I kind of have a similar take on them this year that I had last year, but I am a little bit more able to be pleasantly surprised if it turns out I'm wrong. But we're going to do it now. Talk about the quarterback first. One of the areas that I'm actually really excited about, I think they upgraded here for real. The last year they had Malik Murphy under center, and he's got a good arm. I thought his accuracy was a concern. He threw a good deep ball, but everything middle of the field was kind of inconsistent unless he was running this one slant play where they had it dialed in. But you can't run the same play over and over again. So just other throws, I wasn't very impressed with his presence. And he's also non-mobile. He's not a runner, and I knew that going in. But I did not think he would be as averse to running as he was almost the entirety of last year. And that was kind of a surprise to me. So this year they bring in Darian Mensah, he's from Tulane, transfer from Tulane. He's got a lot of wins under his belt playing for a historically good team over the last few years. And he's also a really big threat to run. So he adds a dynamic element to the offense that was missing this past year. I don't think he lights the world on fire in terms of pocket awareness and going through progressions, but he's a winner. This is a solid winning quarterback that does something that Malik Murphy is unable to do last year. And so I think they upgraded at that position. Moving over to running back. So last year, it was Star Thomas was kind of the guy for them, but he struggled down the stretch. Their run game in general struggled for the most part last year. Star's gone. He went to Tennessee this year. Last year, the back was supposed to be Jaquez Moore. He got hurt early last year, but he's coming back, and he's healthy, so he should kind of be the guy, and he adds a little bit more of a home run threat. I don't think Star Thomas is really that guy. Jaquez Moore, he kind of has that in him. They also added Anderson Castle from App State. Nothing really earth-shattering there. He was probably their RB2 ish for them. Had some carries and obviously had some experience, but didn't light the world on fire. So overall, not an earth-shattering group from a skill position base. Is also one that I was pretty low on last year, and turns out they were bad at it. So I don't expect them to be way better. I do think they'll improve, and I'll tell you why after I talk about the receivers. So going into the wide receiver group, they lost their top two receivers from last year, Jordan Moore, who was second team All ACC, and Eli Pancol, who was kind of like a non-factor initially, but down the stretch, this dude became a yards after the catch guy and like a crazy 50-50 getter. He was actually like really good the last like 5-6 games of the year. So they lost both of those guys, which I think is a blow. They bring back the number 3, who's Quayshawn Brown. They brought in a transfer from Harvard. His name is Cooper Barcott. And other than that, I don't really think this group is nearly as good as they were last year. So I think this is a steep downgrade in terms of that position base in general. So go to O-line, which last year was by far the worst part of the worst part of their game was the offensive line. They were horrible at the run. They did a decent job of stopping pressure. So like they protected Malik pretty well, which they needed to because he wasn't working outside the pocket very much. But in terms of developing any sort of run game, they were abysmal at it. That group, I guess the issue was that group was like really inexperienced. Most of them are back, so they didn't, you kind of hope that they like see that and they want to do some more work in the transfer portal. They did to a minimum degree, but for the most part, that group is coming back. I think one of the ways you can look at it is like it's the second year of that they've got some continuity and they're in the same system, so they should be familiar with the system. I think they'll improve to a degree. Mensah being under center also helps, just being able to move the pocket around and buy some more time. And then adding that element of the run, which will help the overall run game in general. Just him being able to work off the edge more. So it's a group that I'm not really excited about, but I think because they were so bad last year, they don't really have much of a choice but to get a little bit better. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, we'll go to the defensive line. These guys ended up being like this was the group that I was low on this group going into the year, and this is where I was like, oh crap, these guys are actually legit. And I think this is like the Manny Diaz effect. They were gross last year. They're losing one of their top starters, but they're bringing back everyone else. Since the unit was surprisingly good last year, they should be good again, just not as surprisingly so. The names don't pop off the page, but they didn't last year, and the way they worked together, I think they had a good system, they had a good scheme, and they created some pressure. They were one of the better pressure teams in the ACC. They should do the same thing this coming year. Linebacker, this is probably like the top. This was like the best part of their defense was the linebacker group. It's kind of what made their defense so good. Because they aid the defensive line when they're able to like fill gaps and everyone's working together. Like the front seven is just a massive thing when it's all working in harmony. Overall, they lose 3 starters. So that's, in a linebacker core, you're either in a 4-3 or a 3-4. So they're either losing 75% of them or all of them. Nick Morris returns from injury from last year. He's got some experience, so he should probably be the leader of the unit. But I think because they lost so much, they're going to take a step back this year unless Trey Freeman and their transfer, Jaden Francois, level up. So there's some question marks there, but I think they're kind of being answered. And again, it's like kind of like the D-line did last year. Like maybe this group surprises me because of the scheme and how well they buy into it. But talent-wise, they're taking a step back for sure. So DB, this is the last part of the defense. This is the part that Manny Diaz is like always good at, no matter where he goes. He's always got a really good secondary, and last year was no exception. Chandler Rivers and Terry Moore were the 1 and 2. They're all ACC guys. Chandler Rivers was he was like in the running for Defensive Player of the Year for the ACC. He was incredible. And they're both back. They're also bringing in Caleb Weaver, who was first team Conference USA last year. I think this will be a strength for Duke this year as it was last year. Anything Manny Diaz puts his hands on in terms of his secondary generally works out, and I think he's got arguably a better group this year than he had last year. I think they'll be fine. All right, so that's kind of the position groups as a whole. Talk about the schedule. So, like I was saying, like this is a weird team. I underrated them so hard last year. I had them at like 5 wins, I think. I'm pretty sure it was like 5 wins. It's like what I had them winning the first 5 games and then losing every game after that and finishing like 5-7. They ended up winning like 9. And I think they're marginally better this year than they were last year. I think there's a little bit of a question mark, but I think what they're getting at quarterback is really going to tell the tale. Like if they can get that system with him kind of creating that running element and working off that helps the run game. The receivers need to develop, so that's another part that I'm kind of worried about. But defensively, they should be as good, if not a little bit better. It's linebackers the question mark, but the DBs will be better, and the defensive line is going to be pretty good, and the offensive line should improve. So I think they're going to be marginally better, if not close to the same. I don't think they'll surprise me either way. The problem with that is I still don't think like off the page it's like that good. They're like that, they're the 4 through 11, or the 5 through 11 ACC team that I think it's like firmly placed right in the middle where they're competitive some weeks and they'll have some stinkers, but they'll flirt with bowl eligibility. And I just think that's the kind of team that they are. Last year they were surprised at the conference. They won't get away with that this year. They've got a top 40 schedule in terms of difficulty. I'll give them a little bit of a bump from my predictions from last year, and I will say they are going bowling again. They've got Illinois. That won't be a picnic. I think they're going to be good this year. On the road at Syracuse, I actually think they've got that one. I think Syracuse is taking a big step back. I'll get into more of that one when I actually talk about Syracuse. They could surprise me, but I've got a bad feeling about them. Not going to be Georgia Tech or Clemson on the road. North Carolina on the road is going to be cinema. That's going to be, I don't care who wins. That should be a fun game. The rest are winnable. The over-under is at 6.5. I am ready for them to prove me wrong, but I have them at 6 wins this year, which is worth a bowl game. But so a win better than what I predicted last year. I don't think they get to 9 again. Like I just simply don't think that happens. So I've got 6 as my prediction and another bowl appearance. It's not a bad season for them. All right, let's move on to the next team. This is one that a lot of people will want me to talk about. This is Florida State. Let me pull them up. Let me get their picture. Florida State. So this is probably the one a lot of people want me to speak on, because they're just such a, like, I think everyone probably shares like the same thing. Like these dudes can't be worse. There's just simply no way that they can be worse than they were last year. I think it's statistically unlikely, right? Like objectively, it's just super unlikely. I will preface this to say that there's no way, like objectives, like statistics, there's just no way they are as bad. No matter what happens, they will improve over last year. I would put my bottom dollar on that. They will be better. Like I have that before I even talk about anything else. They will be better. Start with a quarterback, and that's where it all starts. Thomas Castellanos is the man under center this year. He led Boston College to like 5 wins last year before he was benched and then transferred almost immediately after. So history says he should lead Florida State to at least 5 wins, which is way more than 2. Again, improvement should be automatic. I will say he fits into this offensive style way better than he fit into Boston College's. O'Brien at BC is like a real run-first kind of guy, and it's a very structured pro style. Thomas likes to create a little bit more. He works better outside the pocket. He's better when he's mobile. I think this type of offense that he's going to have will be far more conducive to his style of play, and I think he has a solid year. Go to running back. They could not do much right offensively last year, and that includes running the football. They did that with hardly any success. Hard to know who's going to be the guy here. I guess it would be like Roydell Williams to start. He was hurt last year and is the guy but he's kind of the guy in the program that has the most experience coming off an injury, so we'll see what he looks like. They also signed Gavin Sawchuk from Oklahoma, and Jalen Lucas also returns from injury. He might be like the RB3. I think it didn't matter last year. I don't think it necessarily matters this year. They will improve. These don't jump off the page, but they don't have a choice but to improve at least a little bit, even if it's, just marginal. Like, I think they get better. Wide receiver. This was painful. If you guys watched last year, and like, I bet everyone stopped watching them by like week 7. I'm the one that just kept watching. As horrible as it was to watch, every game was a learning lesson for me. And so I watched all the snaps. And this group, the wide receivers, was freaking awful last year. They probably led the nation in drops. I would not be surprised. Georgia had a lot too, so they were up there. But I mean, just egregious, like middle school types of drops. Like you could tell that they were so far in their heads. Like it wasn't even about the players; it was just about the mindset going in and game out. They just were not prepped to play. Out of this group, 7 of them are gone, which is probably a good thing. They add Squirrel White, great name, from Tennessee, who has a lot of experience. They get Deuce Robinson from USC and Randy Pittman from UC. Both Deuce and Randy are tight ends, so I think maybe they lean a little bit more into the tight ends. That could actually be a strength of their team in terms of receiving. Thomas works pretty good with tight ends as well, so that's probably pretty conducive to success. So I see those two guys stepping up, but Squirrel White is probably the name to watch. That's the guy that I think is probably going to have the most dynamic playmaking ability in the offense. Right, offensive line. This group was also beyond bad last year. They used 10 different starting combinations to try and find success, and none of them worked. They lost 5 of their guys from last year. Again, not a bad thing. They are bringing in 4 full-time starters from other schools. It will probably take time to gel, but the unit as a whole has experience at the collegiate level and should be far better than they were last year. That would be my guess anyways. Move to the defensive side of the ball. Defensive line. This is the group that everyone hyped up as the best defensive line in the ACC. They really took a step back. They lose 4 starters and bring in 4 transfers. So another situation where it's like and Norvell does this, is like this. He's a portal guy. So there's going to be a lot of turnover on his teams. And in this case, it's probably a good thing that he's dealing with as much turnover as he is. Get some fresh faces in there and kind of create a new standard for excellence. So losing 4 starters, bringing in 4 transfers, it's a complete question mark. But they also had a change in coaching. They've got a new DC who has a lot of experience. I think they take a step forward, like the rest of the team will. Linebacker was one of the bright spots for the team last year. They are losing 1 starter, DJ Lundy, but are getting some key guys back from injury and bringing in 3 transfers, including Tennessee's number 1 tackler, Elijah Herring. That is massive, by the way. That's a massive pickup. I think this group is going to be really good. They were good last year. They will be even better this year. DB's secondary, another unit that underperformed last year. They lose Fentrell Cypress and Azare Thomas, but everyone else is back. This is more about Tony White as the DC. I don't think they'll be as bad as they were last year. I think they've got a new defensive coordinator that'll kind of create a new scheme and a new standard for excellence. Tony White will be the difference maker, not necessarily the players, if that makes sense. So keep an eye on that. I do think this defense takes a big step forward. Generally takes 2 years before they really buy in, but I think they were awful. They will at least be mediocre this year. All right, so last thing, going into the schedule as an added boon to what should be an improvement over last year. Naturally, just organic improvement should happen. The Seminoles have a pretty average schedule to contend with. Week 1 versus Bama, obviously not a picnic, but the rest of the non-conference games are pretty lax until rivalry week against Florida. But they get that at home, which will probably help them as well. Road games versus Virginia, Stanford, NC State, all super manageable. The only road game that'll be tough is Clemson, but they get Miami at home, and they miss Notre Dame and SMU, as well as Georgia Tech, who beat them last year. The over-under is at 6.5 wins. I think 7 is happening without a shadow of a doubt. They have a real shot at 8 if they gel based off this schedule. If I'm doing like futures, this is the over-under that I am taking. 6.5 is low. And people are going to be scared of it too because of how bad they were last year. I am confident that they will have 7 wins, and 8 is legitimate. There's a legitimate shot at 8. Easy bowl contender. They're not going to contend for the ACC title, but they will be a much better team to watch, and they will be much more competitive, and they will play in a bowl game. That is my prediction. All right, last one for the day, and then I got to get out of here. My dark horse team of the year, Georgia Tech. I absolutely love this team. I loved them last year as well. They just had a brutal schedule last year. It was the fourth most difficult schedule in all of college football. Um, Start at quarterback. They bring back the Warrior, Haynes King, who will be a dark horse candidate for Heisman consideration. He is at plus 9,000 odds right now, and I would think about it. I don't think he wins, but like he might be on the short list halfway through the year. I think the thing that is going to be like that kind of remains to be seen. Like he couldn't throw the ball by the end of the year because he had a shoulder injury, and he was just like grinding his way through games. I think if he like took it serious, got his shoulder healthy, and really worked on the craft, shortening the delivery a little bit. Like if you see a different guy week one, like I haven't watched practices, so I don't know. I live in Vegas, so I don't know what's going on over there. But I have like this sneaky suspicion that he has been honing in on the craft because he knows this is his draft. Like he's getting drafted after this year, and if he wants to be in the top 3 rounds, he has to be a completely different thrower. And I'm saying that like he knows this. Like his delivery is too long. He takes too long to throw the ball. His arm strength is not that great. Like he has to really work on that, but he has the tools and the upside to be able to do it. I think he has developed and matured every year. Every year he's gotten a little bit better. There is a chance that he has honed in on this skill and he is a legitimate pro quarterback, by the time this season starts. I'm just saying. Do I think it'll happen? I am like completely, oh, hold on, let me change this thing. Do I think it happens? I don't. It is probably the thing that I'm like, it's just a complete shot in the dark. Like there's no basis behind it. There's no facts to support it. It is just something that I feel like would be the thing that he would do. Because he's gotten better every year. And if he does this, they are a legitimate contender for the playoff if that happens. Because him as a runner is already dangerous, and even if he's not a dangerous thrower, they have Aaron Philo, who is a dangerous thrower, and that 1-2 combination is scary at quarterback. It's probably one of the top 10 combinations of quarterback in all of college football. I'm just saying, there is a chance. Plus 9,000 odd. All right. Running back. So RB1, Jamal Haynes, is back. And as long as he stays healthy, he will be one of the best backs in the ACC. I have him as the second best back in the ACC, behind the man from Wake Forest, who we will talk about in, I would say, probably 2 weeks. Claiborne, sorry. I'm reading and talking at the same time. But he's back. Jamal Haynes is back, and as long as he's healthy, he's a top 2. He's going to be like a first or second teamer in terms of all ACC, as long as he's healthy. Chad Alexander is going to be his backup. He went from a walk-on to a scholarship recipient in 1 year. He should get a lot of carries as well. And they bring in Malachi Hosley, who was the Ivy League Offensive Player of the Year. This is a fantastic group. And they're good at running the ball anyways, and they've got these guys in the stable. And I think this is going to be a fantastic group. Top 10 group. On the offensive side of the ball, this is probably where the question marks are. The big loss is Eric Singleton. Obviously, he transferred out after the season. They lost Jackson Hawes as well, who's the tight end. But they kept Malik Rutherford, and they added 2 starters from FIU, Eric Rivers and Dean Patterson, and another 3 transfers on top of that. They might not have the top line guy in Singleton, but they've got way more depth than they had last year and a lot of playmaking ability. I think overall this will be a better group than it was last year, and it wasn't bad last year. It was fun to watch, and I think it'll be even better. Offensive line, skill and experience, they're going to take a step back. They lose second team ACC Jordan Williams, second team ACC Weston Franklin, Corey Robinson, and Jordan Brown. They keep the rest, which, I mean, that's like half, and they add a transfer. The reason I am, like, face value, you would be like, oh, crap, because offensive line is their thing, right? Like, that was kind of what they're normally a top, 5 group, regardless of how good the rest of the team is. So the face value, that's, like, kind of scary. But they added a transfer, and Brent Key is an offensive line guy, and he's one of the best in the business. If there is anyone I trust to get a group up to speed, it is him. It may not be as dominant. I mean, they would move people. It may not be dominant like that, but it's still going to be a solid unit, and they will do a good job of protecting Haynes and a good job of establishing the run. I just think that is in Brent Key's MO. That is like just what he is known for, and he's got a good enough group to at least be competent in that area, if not dominant. Move to the defensive side of the ball. I would say probably the most turnover happened here at D-line. 7 of their top 8 players all graduated or hit the portal, so it is a complete rebuild. Now, they did a good job of addressing it. They added 5 transfers, but I do not think they will be nearly as good as they were last year. It was probably the strength of their defense last year. I think they take a step back this year, I'll be honest with you. It'll be one of the things that keeps them out of like a title contention if they don't gel like they need to. Especially with 5 transfers, you really don't know what you're going to get. Go to the linebacker group. This group for sure got better, which is massive considering the pressure the D-line might put on them if they don't gel in time. Kyle Effort returns. He might be the nation's leading tackler if he stays healthy. That's not an exaggeration. He might just do it. They lost Tatum, but everyone else is back. That's like first and second rotation. They also added 2 transfers who started at their previous schools, so they're going to get a lot of experience and depth. And Kyle Effort is a difference maker in himself. Defensive back, this was, to me, watching them play, this was the worst part of their game last year, was the DBs. They just didn't have a lot of depth, and when they got hit by the injury bug, they did not have the people in play to keep points off the board. A lot of big plays, a lot of explosives. It's just the guys just couldn't cover. But this year they add 3 transfer starters. I think they will have more depth. And while they lost some starters from last year, I don't think those guys were really that great anyways. So I think this is one of the units that gets better with some fresh faces. Schedule-wise, okay. So again, last year I thought Georgia Tech was really, really good. The only thing holding them back was the schedule, the 4th toughest in the nation. This year it is much more manageable. Opening against Colorado will be interesting, but I think that's a very winnable game. I don't think Colorado's nearly as good as they were last year. There's no other like non-conference games. I think non-conference in general is a very doable schedule outside of Georgia, obviously. But they always compete with Georgia even if they don't win. So it's like one of those where it's like they might lose, but it's a good loss. And as long as they keep it competitive, it won't hurt them too much in terms of rankings. They get Clemson at home. They miss Miami, they miss Notre Dame, they miss Louisville, and they miss SMU. That's like crazy. That's the top 5 teams, except for Clemson. Road games against Wake, NC State, and Boston College. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better lineup than that. The over-under win total is 7.5. I am putting all of my chips on the over. I think they can legitimately win 9 games this year, and a 10th is in the cards if they can upset Clemson at home. That's a big if. But the fact that they get him at home, and you remember the Miami game from last year, that's Georgia Tech is known for beating top 10s at their place. So if nothing else, you know they're going to prepare. They're going to be well prepared, and I think they'll do a good job. They may not win the game, but that would be the 10th win that I see if they can somehow upset Clemson. It's doable. I am fully prepared to eat my words if it all falls apart, but this team is playing for the conference championship this year, and they have an outside shot at making the playoff. Do they make the playoff? Probably not. The ACC doesn't get the respect. It doesn't really deserve it. I'll be honest. The other 2 conferences are much better. They should have more teams. But obviously, if Georgia Tech somehow ends up in the top 15, they're going to sniff it. I think they're a top 25 team for sure, and they have a chance at a top 15. Obviously, I could be completely and totally wrong, but I have done the research, and I think they've got a real shot at it. Okay, that's 3 teams for today. I probably kept it, hopefully it was shorter than the last one. It felt shorter. It might just be about the same. If not, then they're just going to be 30-minute videos, and that's the way it's going to be, except for the one where I do 4 teams, and that might be 35. I like doing these though. These are fun. I'm so I'm revved up for the season. I'm loving doing the research and learning about the teams and getting everything ready for the start of the year. It's we got like a month and like a week to go before week 0, and I'm fired up. I appreciate you guys watching and listening. Same time probably next week, and I'll do 3 more teams. I can't remember off the top of my head what they are, but I know Louisville is one of them, and I think Miami's another one. So it should be a pretty good episode. I wanted to have some good teams in there, and I think we'll have at least 2 good ones to talk about. Otherwise, make sure you comment, subscribe, like, follow us on the page. Give us some comments with anything else that you want us to talk about. I'm down to talk about whatever. But I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you next time.